Hi folks, welcome back to the shed. Today we're on part 2 of this sump casting project. If you want to see part 1 where I made the patterns, click on this link up here. But today I'm going to try moulding it up in green sand, and if it goes well I might even try a bit of a test pour. Let's get on with it. Right, I've got my flask screwed to the pattern so it doesn't bounce off, and it's lined up with these pieces on the corner, so let's get some sand in it. Parting powder. Right, so this is quite a shallow flask, as you can see. The idea being to save sand, although it's just taken 26 kilos of it. So in order to give it some strength, because this part's going to go the other way up, I'm going to screw this board over the top of it. So the next question is, firstly, can I turn it over? And secondly, will it demould? Right, well I managed to get it flipped over at some expense to my back, and I've got it in a contraption. Now this is a Saris linkage, which in theory moves the top part of it perfectly vertically. The idea being to lift the piece off the mould without banging the sides of any tapered parts. Of course, out here in the real world, materials aren't infinitely stiff, so it is a bit wobbly. So I guess we'll just try and see. Now for the other half. I wouldn't be at all surprised if this ended up weighing 100 kilos. So I might get stuck here. But anyway, let's see how it moulds up. Okay, so that didn't work. I managed to get it upside down and it all fell to pieces while I was trying to shuffle it into the thing. Okay, maybe I knocked it a bit, but I think this is going to need a temporary board, while it's upside down. Otherwise it's just going to fall to pieces every time. So better start scratching around for a bit of wood. Right, let's try this again. Yeah, not so good this time. Another disappointing result. I think I need to add a little lip on the flask, because when I tried to flip it over into the position where it needs to be lowered onto the other mould, it all fell to pieces. But also I think maybe my sand's a little bit on the dry side. I think I'll knock it on the head for today, maybe do some work on the pattern that I need to do anyway, and come back to this with a fresh head tomorrow. Right, by the magic of editing, it's now the next day, and I've tuned up my top flask a little bit. I put this lip around the outside so that the sand can't slide out that way when it's the right way up. And I've given it a coat of paint as well, because it seemed to be pulling the moisture out of the sand yesterday. So we'll have another go and see if that makes it any better. Meh. Well, I didn't get a clean pull. You'll have seen the pattern tip as it came out, so I think this crazy Saris linkage idea is a bad one. Right, I'm giving up on the Saris linkage. It's too unwieldy, too floppy. it just doesn't work. I'm going to come up with something else. So please hold, and let's see if I can figure out a better way to do vertical lifting. Right, so I've got the flask screwed to the pattern and it's lined up with blocks in the corners. So let's see what happens. I'm going to add a source of vibration here. It's only 1.2 kilowatts. And now I can unscrew the flask from the pattern. I've got my magical vertical lifting device, which should, in theory, pull the pattern out of the sand without it tilting, tipping, running sideways, knocking itself to pieces. God, that's loud. Right, not the perfect pull despite the magical machine. I've got some pull out around the back. I'm not quite sure whether it looks like it's managed to move that way a little bit. Yeah. So I'll have to try and figure out how that's happening. It's all over. It's all gone that way, I think. More back anyway. I'll see if this will hold together well enough to do a sort of trial alignment pour anyway. Nearly but not quite on this one. Got a bit of a ding here. I'm not sure if that's because it's moved or it doesn't look like it. It looks like that was a ramming failure. Still, this should be fine for pouring just a little bit around the bottom. I'll knock that off. Right, because I can't lift this, I'm going to attempt to pick the cope up with the magic liftertron, slide the other half underneath and then lower this back down again. Okay, so obviously there's not a lot correct here, but this was a good exercise nonetheless, because I do have some alignment issues to sort out. This edge is quite thin, and this is thicker, so yeah, and I think by the look of it from this edge at the back, that's a bit thin as well. So I think the inner mould needs to move towards the front and this way a bit. So yeah, obviously still nowhere near the right result, but a step along the way. Okay, so off camera I've tuned this pattern up a bit, put a bigger guard over on this edge so that it should pull more cleanly. I've sorted this flask out so it doesn't rock anymore. Well, not much anyway. And I've built a muller so I can tune my sand up a bit, because hand mulling that 100 kilos of green sand after the last pour was extremely tedious. I needed to tune it up a bit anyway, because I'm going to put a bit of dextrin in it, which I'm told gives it a bit of extra grab. So I guess that means it's time for another go. Well, I wasn't really expecting that to work. Much quicker than the usual way. Now if it had just stopped raining, I'd fire up the furnace and try and pour this thing. Okay, so in the middle of all the flap that you have when you're pouring aluminium, I forgot to turn the camera on. But anyway, it's poured. It took absolutely a brim-full crucible, of the biggest possible crucible I can fit on my furnace. So if this is a short pour, well, you know, if this didn't fill, it's going off to a jobbing foundry. Got my big boys ingots. Thank you to Norton for supplying a laughably tiny quantity. Did feel kind of daft, everyone else was showing up in 36-ton trucks. And I was there essentially carrying my order out under my arms across the weighbridge. Right, I'll let this cool down while I've melted off some scrap. So let's knock it in half and see what horrors await. I didn't think about this, did I? Okay. Holy shit. Might have a full pull here, guys. Holy crap. Uh-huh. Yep, that's right. Cast in place text that no one will ever see. Oh yeah. You see any holes in that? Because I don't. Yes. Wow. Well, it seems to be watertight. Well, excited as I was by that piece, there are a couple of defects in it, notably a bit of shrinkage where I've not really thought about the order that things are going to solidify. So I've done a bit of redo of the patterns again. In this case I've got a long runner in the drag, which has got a dead end, and I've moved the pouring location in the cope to feed into this boss, which is the thickest part on it. And I've gone away from having a riser, and I've just got now a couple of bobs on these corner bosses, which are also quite thick. And I've taken the opportunity to block off part of this flask because it was unnecessarily heavy and I didn't need this extra room down the side. So I'm going to have one more go. That face. There's not supposed to be a hole there. Right, judging by the amount of metal I had left over here in my ingot tray, I can only assume that this didn't fill properly, because this was supposed to use up everything I had with the newest runners. So I'm not particularly optimistic, which is why you are in the smallest camera. But still, let's open it up and see what's what. Nope. Oh, much worse. Oh, back's way too thin. Oh, that's crap. So it kind of filled to the top, but we got holes. Big holes everywhere. And these didn't work at all. Still a big shriek. Oh, it's quite warm. No. This one wasn't good. Right, let's see what we've got this time. No, another failure, I'm afraid. Down. Right, left that to cool down for exactly 2 slices of toast. So let's see what's in it. Let's open the box. Are we hopeful? I don't know. Quite hot. Still quite hot. Not bad. I'd even go so far as to say that this is a success. And there we go. After 5 attempts and a lot of pain and swearing, we've finally got a decent casting. The next step is going to be to machine this, but this video's already gone on long enough. So stick around, mash the buttons, and in the next one we'll hopefully be in my mate's machine shop. Bye for now.